It's Blackout Tuesday, so lots of people have been showing solidarity by sharing a solid black image on their Instagram or their Facebook or whichever social media is their choice. But all races are equal, and we're all one, and we're all just one big human race. So does racism really matter? That's the conversation I will be having with Kalim, good friend of mine who's been debating this back and forth online recently. Kalim, thanks for talking to me about this.
No problem. Thank you for having me, Jules. It's a pleasure to be.
You're always welcome, and I'll give the quick... we'll do it again at the end, but Kalim is a great beatboxer. He's got a ton of stuff on YouTube about that. It's Tangent Beatbox, right?
Yeah, Beatbox Tangent at Instagram, also on YouTube as well, at Beatbox Tangent. So a lot of music, a lot of positivity. Do a lot of stuff with youth and young people and trying to create that positive message of unity in diversity as well. So that's what the ethos of who I am and what I do.
I know that for a fact that you've always been about this idea of us all being equal and integrating different races coming together. I've got the picture on the screen of George Floyd's brother holding the picture of his fallen brother. He was talking in the aftermath of this, so soon after his brother's death, about the need for peace and for people to come together. Now we got the sign there. If what does it say? Oh, I can't see it, but it's this is the white guy hugging the black guy. So this is the classic image of peace and love. Why can't we all just get on? And some people have described sharing such images as tone deaf, depending on the sentiment. I mean, the post always depends what you write underneath it, isn't it? But what do you think of the reaction to the pictures that show black, white, and white people hugging and embracing? What about the reaction that says, well, that's not appropriate at this time?
I can totally understand the sentiment, and I can totally understand that, especially during this time of immense turmoil and confliction and chaos and anger, that this is a very highly emotive topic that we are talking about. This isn't debating something lightly. This is something that, things like racism and prejudice and discrimination, especially when it wasn't so long ago that America came out of slavery, and so on. So we have to understand, like I totally understand, that this is a very highly emotive topic, and sometimes I have to check myself as well and say, how is that my friends who, being brought up in the Baha'i teachings and talking about the oneness of humanity, the oneness of religion, the oneness of God, and all men and women being like the fingers of one hand, the leaves of one tree, and so on. I also have to understand that my shared experience as a white, coming from a working class white background, is that in my experience is not the same shared experience as some of my other friends who've unfortunately have witnessed and experienced horrific acts of racism. So I think first thing we have to diagnose that. We have to diagnose that this is a very sensitive subject and it's very emotive for some people and so on. And of course, I try to promote inclusivity and diversity as much as I can. I could totally understand the argument as well about, this is this is tone deaf because, what we're witnessing in the 21st century, when Will Smith said, what did he say? He said, there's about racism, somebody asked if this racism is just being recorded,
right. Well, in the chat, Kalim, just to interrupt you, in the chat, Triple T is saying 200 years, how is that not long ago?
How is it not long ago? It's very recent. It's very recent. Like slavery was just abolished recently, and so on. And
but 200 years, there's no one alive today in America who was enslaved under the transatlantic slave trade. There are slave markets in Libya, apparently, and maybe in some other countries as well. But in America, it's been illegal for 200 years. Is America not ahead in some ways?
I think, well, first of all, if we talk about the systems of what they're in and so what we're in, I think most of them are lamentably defective. That's the first thing that I think about when I think about systems such as capitalism, communism, and so on. They're lamentably defective. And also when it comes to things like slavery, when slavery was abolished, it didn't go like this racism or this superiority that still existed didn't go away, and it's still there. And I believe in that there is institutional racism, and I think it's crept into our institutions as well. But
Do you believe that's the case in America?
I believe, yeah, of course.
I want to bring up a point. You touched upon your religion, and you don't mind sharing that. You said that you're a member of the Baha'i faith. Now, this is a minority religion in Iran, or that originated in Iran, and there are many Baha'is in Iran today who suffer terrible discrimination at state level because of the fact they follow a minority religion. And I made the comparison to you saying sharing pictures like this might be akin to saying, well, not every authority or revolutionary guard in Iran hates the Baha'is. If I shared pictures of forces in Iran hugging Baha'i kids and having a great family picnic or whatever it is, would I be detracting from the state level persecution that they have over there in that country? And is it fair for me to compare the state level persecution over there with the institutionalized racism that you acknowledge happens in America? Is it similar? Is it different? Is it a more extreme example of the same thing?
Well, in my view, I think both of them are institutional racism. If we break it down, yes, and I agree with you, maybe not every guard or every soldier or every person in Iran hates the Baha'is and so on, but we have to understand as well, and I think the two things that are linked together with this is that feeling again of superiority. With the Baha'i, from the beginning of the Baha'i faith, instantly they were cast into immense persecution. People blown out of cannons, people dragged through the streets, and so on for being Baha'is. And linking that with America as well, there was this mindset of people who thought that black people were superior to them. So I think it's the thing that links this both together is this feeling of superiority. When we have these feelings that actually, I'm more superior because I think my religion is better than yours, or I'm more superior because my skin color is better than yours. Is that this is where the problem lies, and it also comes from years of conditioning and from parents and so on, and I think they're both institutional as well.
Okay.
And it can creep into our institutions, this type of superior way of thinking that when we place ourselves higher than anybody, higher than other people. So in that aspect, I would say both are institutional. Some may argue, Baha'is have argued that maybe this institutional racism and this institutional persecution of the Baha'is is more it's more institutional compared. But in my view, I think, as I said, I think they're both institutional. They both have these feelings of superiority. Like if you analyze the Hutu and the Tutsis, for example, there were feelings of superiority between both of them. One of them think, I'm taller, therefore I am better than you.
Now, interestingly, Kalim, you bring up the Rwandan genocide. It was the ethnic group deemed to be superior, the ethnic group that had the upper hand, that were actually annihilated, for want of that's a terrible choice of word, that were persecuted and genocided. There's a word for it. Genocided. They were perceived to have the upper hand. The Belgians, who ruled that part of Africa, left behind a legacy of superiority, and then the backlash came when the Hutus resisted these Tutsis that had been living on top of them, as they would perceive it, with the privilege, the Tutsi privilege, you could say. The conversation that made me think of this point was something that occurred to me when I spent time in the West Bank. A Palestinian activist said to me, it's all well and good when people share these pictures of Palestinians and Israelis holding hands and saying, come, let's do a concert together or something. But he said, would you share pictures of the slave and the slave master? When someone's got the upper hand, it is imperative for the person being persecuted to fight back. But sometimes in the wake of or in a power vacuum, you will then get a reverse genocide, and the group that were persecuted will rise up and persecute the ones who had the upper hand before. So I mean, I guess that's how cycles of violence continue, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. For me, I can only sometimes see, like, I'm just thinking about what the Baha'is went through in Iran with when they started believing in the Baha'i teachings, and Baha'u'llah, who, as Baha'is believe to be him like a messenger of God, that they never fought back against the authorities.
So you're just to break it down for people in layman's terms, Kalim, because some people will have not heard of this faith before. You are, is it fair to say, pacifists? You don't believe in resisting violently, whereas other groups that have been persecuted have resisted violently. I always say that the discrimination against the black people in America was resisted in both ways, peacefully and violently. Malcolm X said, by any means necessary. And Martin Luther King is portrayed as a very sort of cuddly character. And there's another quote that we'll mention in a minute about Rosa Parks, how she didn't burn the bus, she just got on the bus. But it is legitimate to resist oppression with self-defense. I believe in self-defense. I'm not sure whether your religious beliefs come into that or not, but your people are very much non-violent. Is that fair to say?
We definitely raise awareness. There's been many campaigns on social media about the persecution of the Baha'is in Iran, for example. So we definitely raise awareness, and we work through the right channels through our Baha'i institutions. We also work with like the UN and other institutions as well to put pressure on people and institutions that are oppressing, especially with
do you think is the UN a good route to go down if you want to resist oppression in your country or in your life?
As Baha'i, I believe that it's inevitable for world institutions to come about and to arise, and so on. One of the world institutions that Baha'u'llah talks about is a world tribunal. So it's which basically, because we have entered into this phase in humanity's existence of globalism, that countries need to be held to an account when they start to persecute other countries or do terrible, horrible things to other countries. At this moment in time, we don't have such thing. Of course, okay, we have the UN, and people and countries can have veto power, but it's not solidified into anything legitimate at the moment. It's still very defective, and it's embryonic as well, but it's defective and not doing its job properly in one sense.
So are you suggesting that the black people in America who are upset about the way they've been treated, upset about the police brutality, what should they do? Write a letter to the UN? How do they resist?
I think this is just my view. This is not, I think first of all, I think the main aspect of it all is justice. Yeah, and we need to understand how to see justice. Like in the Baha'i writers, I'll just read to you a few. Is that the light of men is justice. Quench it not with contrary winds of oppression and tyranny. The purpose of justice is the appearance of unity among men. So that, I think, within the Baha'i teachings, it does talk about this concept of unity, but it talks about this concept of justice and what does justice look like and so on. We've had, in the Baha'i teachings, it talks about humanity going through phases, going through a phase of being like a child, grown up into a toddler, and humanity in this world in which we live in is like an adolescent at the moment. That we have witnessed horrific things in the past, horrific things that both, I think, we would agree on.
Well, the chant at these protests was justice on the left. No, was it justice, peace on the left, justice on the right? So these people want justice, but the other slogan is no justice, no peace. You will never get peace without justice. The justice has to come first. And if you don't like violence, and I know you're a peaceful guy and you don't like it, then we need to establish justice and stop this inequality.
I have a few things.
It's going to happen in that order, I think.
I think people like Big Mike, I don't know if you saw the video, a rapper from Atlanta called Big Mike, expressing his feelings about it. He was saying, I'm mad, what's going on, I'm mad. But he said, you gotta direct it through the right channels. But personally for me, I don't think it's the political system which is the right channel. But when the ashes have fallen and when the smoke is cleared and so on, how do we not arrive to a point where this is repeated again and again and again and so on? How like the revolution of Mao, for example, is that the path that humanity wants to go down, where we are led into authoritarianism? Okay, you could argue the fact that the way that Trump is handling is a means of authoritarianism as well, which is not good. But what kind of world do we want to build? And my second point is that I think we are starting, at this moment in time, worldviews are still very nationalistic and still focusing on my country first, my country beyond anything. Even within like communist societies and socialist societies, it's still this mindset: my country first, my country first.
Well, the Communist Manifesto does it not believe in permanent revolution, and that we will have a country without borders, and that the borders will fall.
At the same time, I think it's important to define the borders, because having an identity that aligns ourselves from our country is important. Like I would say, as a Welshman, I am proud to be Welsh, 100% proud to be Welsh, but I would never, it goes back to that.
Are you proud to be white?
I'm proud to be who I am and my identity.
Are you proud to be white, Kalim?
Am I proud to be white? Of course.
Are you? Okay.
When I say I'm proud to be white, I I mean that I do not place my skin color or my nationality or my identity as being superior to anybody else or superior. But at the same time, as I said before, I also need to check my privilege as well.
I mean, I asked you the question quite flippantly: are you proud to be white? Yeah. You answered it the second time, but there is something hesitant naturally about declaring that you're proud to be white as compared to I'm proud to be black, Black Pride, Black History Month. Now, why is that? Because you're of the mindset that we're all equal. Why is it okay to say I'm proud to be black, but we hesitate to say I'm proud to be white?
It's probably because of how shameful I feel about my history, and about where.
Why though? It wasn't you, was it? It wasn't you that did all that?
I know it was. Of course, it wasn't me. It was a part of the system. It was a part of the British Empire and so on and things like that. But at the same time, it's. I believe that when I say my identity, I also understand that my identity. In society today, this concept of identity is really a big topic. People say my identity is that I'm white, I'm black, I'm homosexual, I'm this, I'm that, and so on. But primarily, I think identity is that we have a soul. I'm speaking in religious terms now. That we all have a soul, and that our soul is genderless. A soul has no identity.
Really? Do you believe that? You believe our souls are gender neutral, so to speak?
Yeah. Gender neutral, yes, definitely, because I think it's a manifestation of something that is not physical, and it's something that I can.
Wow. But gender's not only physical, is it? Or is it? I don't know.
But I'm talking about the concept of identity, and how we place our identity and what we place it on. See, I would say our identity is inherently spiritual, as being a member of the human race and so on, and that my purpose with my identity is to constantly clean the mirror of my heart so I can reflect the light of God through his messengers and manifestations of God. And as a Baha'i, definitely believe that. But I think sometimes, in society, when materialism and consumerism is really placed at the heart of everybody's lives, people get confused about what's my true identity, what's my true reality, who am I as a human being, am I this, am I that? And I think sometimes these materialistic concepts of identity make us very tribal, very tribal, and then you see otherism and you see this division and so on. But if we understand that we all have souls, and we all bleed red, and we all are working towards the same goal, I think that eliminates that as well. But also realizing the concept of unity in diversity is important as well. That diversity, that beauty comes from with differences, like a flower garden. With a flower garden, what makes a flower garden beautiful is the diversity within it. So therefore, that's the kind of thing I think who we are. We can't forget our culture. We can't forget who we are and where we come from and so on. But at the same time, as I said, I shouldn't take that as being a level of superiority over another. But,
well, yeah. Funny enough, here you forgot where he's from. We're going to listen to Majid Nawaz now. Just have a little listen. Okay. All right.
No form of populism, fascism, or racial supremacy is going to get us through this. They are the murderers of Malcolm X, the black supremacists, in collusion with the certain law and order officials that were clearly not investigated into properly as they should have been. Just watch the documentary on Netflix, Who Killed Malcolm X? It's all there for you. The black supremacists murdered Malcolm X. They murdered a civil rights icon. But Martin Luther King's method, Gandhi's method, Madiba's method, Al-Hajj Malik al-Shabazi's method was violent resistance. It's what we must be focused on, and it was a multi-ethnic solution. The I Have a Dream speech wants to look at the content of your character, not the colour of your skin. And because I'm speaking like that, I've got a text I need you to just please pay attention to, because there are dividends to this approach. And it's so powerful when you see those dividends. An anonymous texter has said, I am ashamed to say I'm often a little racist. I need to listen to you more because you speak sense. Now that text came in after I disagreed with Colette about black supremacy being the solution. I'll read it one more time for you. I am ashamed to say I'm often a little racist. I need to listen to you more to speak because you speak sense. If you had argued, and if I had agreed with Colette that black supremacy is the answer, we would not have changed that texter's mind, or at least put in a small doubt or a chink in their armour, and it is an armour. Racism is an armour to protect against one's own insecurities. And that white racist is as insecure and as scared as the black racist, and vice versa. So it's incredibly important that we keep this at the forefront of their minds. And yes, intersectionality applies. Yes, the white racist, even though he's scared, hasn't suffered what the black supremacist has suffered through history and generational trauma. I concede all of that. But still, and despite that, I'll tell you I've suffered.
Okay, and there is the quote on the screen. I hope you could hear Kalim. Rosa Parks did not burn the bus down. She simply sat down, and by doing so she sparked a revolution. Easy for you to say, Majid Nawaz, and he is somebody who has gone, I think, from one extreme to another. I think what he said there in that short 2-minute clip was very spot on, but I would disagree with him on other statements that he's made. But is it very easy for him to say, oh, Rosa Parks didn't burn the bus down? Who knows what led to the liberation of the black people? Is it even complete yet? Black people are still being killed at a hugely disproportionate rate by the police. Black people are still in poverty at a higher rate as compared with the rest of the population. So for black people, for whatever reason, they feel like they've got a long way to go, I would imagine.
Yeah, for sure. And I think this context of what Majid is talking about is raised higher, because it's talking about this concept of racism and what racism brings. And it's good, I think, in nowadays that you have people like that caller listening to people like Majid, listening to other people like Mehdi Hassan as well, and listening to other people who they might not listen to. So I think we are approaching different aspects and views on this concept. And so
I wish I'd got a clip of Mehdi Hassan. I'd much prefer to listen to him than Majid Nawaz, but that's my own personal preference.
I don't mind Mehdi Hassan, but I recently listened to one of his things about Iran, and I kind of disagreed. But overall, I don't mind Mehdi Hassan. But I want to bring us back to this concept of racism and what Majid Nawaz was talking about about this race. In high teachings, Baha'u'llah says that racism retards the unfoldment of the boundless potentialities of its victims. It corrupts its perpetrators and blights human progress. Recognition of the oneness of mankind implemented by appropriate legal measures must be universally upheld if this problem is to be overcome. So we can understand that it as I said, corrupts these people. It corrupts their whole being and who they are. And it's impossible for humanity to progress if people are still in this mindset. Now that being said, is that what I think Majid was on about, and I can understand Majid because I can understand that he, a boy from Essex, chased around the block for his skin color and so on, and and things like that, this level of conditioning and racism is still there in society, and it still what's the word, permeates through our institutions and so on. But I think what he was trying to say there is that people are starting to listen to people and of people of color, and to understand, okay, because somebody could put on Facebook or whatever, and then they could see somebody looting a store and taking from their own community, and they'd be like, they'll get totally the wrong image, and then they'll be like, oh no, this is just as bad, and blah blah blah, and so on. But I think it's an understanding of where, how am I trying to say? I think it's an understanding of what people have gone through and their lives and their experiences.
So we're understanding each other, hopefully. Look, in the chat, PK is saying, it's very lovely what he's saying. However, one must factor in psychopaths who crave power and don't care about your feelings. I don't know if he's reacting to what you said or Majid Nawaz, but as you're saying basically the same thing, maybe it's relevant. Don't care about your feelings. I thought we cared too much about people's feelings these days. I thought your feelings don't change the facts. And HK Stocks is saying the awareness and education surrounding race had grown so much by the 60s. I think those in control, like they do
with the institutions that we have in our society today, like in the Baha'i teachings, Baha'u'llah says that all these systems are lamentably defective. So because they are not.
But Kalim, which one's the least worst? Which country is the least worst? Go on.
Is the least worst.
Yeah. Are any of them? Are you so global that you're saying it's a global problem, and if there's an injustice anywhere, there's injustice everywhere, which some people say? Or do you acknowledge that some places are closer to getting it right? As much as we lament how America treats black people till now, the fact that they outlawed slavery 200 years ago has to be acknowledged as a good thing, right?
Yes, also what I was trying to say is that these systems are lamentably defective because they don't promote the oneness of humankind. They stay grassrooted to their own country and nationalism, and they think about, my people first, and creates this sense of tribalism and so on. And I think we can see that through capitalism, through communism, and so on, and things like this. There's aspects of these systems that, I can agree with. I agree with that. I agree with, bringing down the bourgeoisie, the elite, and having more of an equitable society. I can understand that argument, but then I can understand the argument of, as well, with capitalism being freedom of speech, freedom of press, freedom of religion, democracy, and things like that. So these aspects are good, but unfortunately, each of these systems do not promote the concept of the oneness of humankind, and I believe that's where humanity is. In the Baha'i teachings, it talks about this concept of the twinfold moral purpose, the deconstructive and constructive forces within our world, and the deconstructive forces is the tearing down and bringing down of this old world order, which is based on racism, tribalism, violence, and
Islamism. But Kalim, I have to ask you, because it's in the chat. Do you put your family first? I know you're all into we are all one and peace and love, but do you put your family first? And this texter is also saying, it's PK, by the way, who spoke to the other night, who made a great contribution. He's saying systems are created by mankind. Man is flawed, hence no system can be perfect. But maybe you've got an answer for that. But answer his second question first. Do you put your family first?
I'm trying to understand the context of that statement. Is it, do I put my family first if somebody came in and attacked?
I guess he might be talking at state level, maybe. Do we just share out everything equally? Or are you going to prioritise you and yours? I'm reading into what he's saying because I happen to I don't want to say too much because it would be unfair, but I'm imagining he's implying that British people should look after British people first, and so on, and so on, and we shouldn't be this international one world that you're talking about. But if I've unfairly extracted that, then you'll have to correct me. Are you saying family, village, town, city, country, nation? Yeah, I guess that's how you break it down, and you're going one step further and saying the whole world. But I think PK would be of a nationalist persuasion, and he's saying the British should look after the British, and so on, and he sees that as the best way to do it. And in America, they've got a format for all men are created equal, and in theory it was meant to be black men, white men, whoever, but in practice it was white men are created equal, white women just behind, and the rest are catching up. But at least they've got it in writing, and you can be an Italian American, an African American, an Irish American, or whatever, but you're still an American. Maybe that's a good way to do it. I don't know how the Native Americans feel about that, as they were vastly wiped out. But there are many left, and they are Native Americans. They are as American as Donald Trump, they're more American, aren't they? Are they? Are they more American than Donald Trump, or are they just as American? Do the native people of a land have a right to the land? Should they be given some sort of priority? Should they be given reparations if that land was forcibly taken off them? I've hit you with a lot of questions there, Kalim. Dig in, do what you can.
I'm going to break it down just a little bit for what you said. I'm going to take it back to the first question when you asked me about, my family first. And so I think we've been ushered into a new phase of humanity's existence. Christ in the Bible said, I have many things to tell you, but you cannot bear it now. Howbeit, when the Son of Truth comes, he will guide you unto all truth. He will take of mine and show it unto you. So at the time of Christ, he was saying, I have so many things to tell you right now, but you can't handle it. You can't hear it because you won't understand. Therefore, we live in a totally different society, in a different world today. We're living in a world of technological communication. I can send a direct message to somebody across the other side of the planet in a millisecond. That's the effect of what's globalism.
The fax machine.
So, therefore, I think that, and it goes back, and this is also a teaching, I believe, in Islam as well, and it also teaches this in the Baha'i teachings as well. We have to liken the whole world now. Whether we like it or not, we have to liken the world as a human body.
If this is your religion that says that, that's great. But I could say, well, my religion says something different, so I'm going to say this. I could say my religion tells me that I'm allowed to live here and you're not, therefore I need to turf you out. And as I said before on here, religion will always have different interpretations, and people will always say, oh, I've got the right one. And when people say, I hate such and such a religion, I always throw it back at them and say, no, maybe you just hate every interpretation of that religion that you've come across. Because I guarantee, whatever religion it is, there will be an interpretation that is different. They might be regarded as heretics. Your religion came as an offshoot, if you don't mind me using that term, from Islam. And people rejected it. And some people accepted it and some people rejected it. But there was always going to be differences of opinion. So we need to have a scenario where if you want to do the whole live in peace and love thing, that we can accept the differences. Because if someone feels like we're just going from your script of your religion, then it's going to be carte blanche for every religion to roll out its order of things, and the most extreme ones will be the most extreme. So how do you bring the secular people into this spiritual mindset that you've got without persuading them you have to follow my religion? Because why else are they going to do it? So give me a non-religious argument for why this great global plan will work.
So two points. I'll address them with 2 points. So I want to finish the last point where I was saying
go on.
Globalism. So that point is that we have to liken the world like a human body. and you probably know this as well, if something is defective within my body, if there is a problem within my body, it disables the rest of my body. Maybe my body can still function, but it will be much harder for my body to function properly compared if I had all my organs working properly. So therefore, we have to liken the world to be like this as well. If one country economically falls, it has great effect on the other parts of the world as well. So that's one thing. The other thing, that question that you just asked me is a very interesting question. See, this is where, as a Baha'i, and first of all, I want to address that. As Baha'is, we don't see the Baha'i faith as being an offshoot. We see the Baha'i teachings as being in the same way as Christianity came out of Judaism. We as Baha'is believe that the Baha'i faith came out of Islam.
Well, I would call Christianity an offshoot of Judaism. I won't use that language if you don't like it. And if you've got any pronouns you'd like me to use, I will happily use them as well. But we're putting it in context. It came as like a new start in the Islamic world from within the Islamic religion, and it's now a separate religion, just as Christianity is a separate religion from Judaism, but Jesus was Jewish. Sorry to break that to some of the anti-Semites out there. But here's another comment from Alfie. He's saying, it is scientific fact that we aren't all equal. Or what I was told through higher education, IQ, fast twitch fibers, certain races prone to specific illnesses and conditions. It is scientific, So he's saying we're not all the same, we're not all equal. So how can we treat, as you say, the ailment in one part of the body if we're all different? And these are the views of Alfie and not Lessons for Life.
That's fine. So the way I would respond to that is what I would kind of said earlier, is that I totally agree. I am different. Even a twin is different from his twin, So I would agree 100%. But therefore, we need to embrace the concept of unity and diversity. That, of course, there are differences, but then we should use this diversity as a means of uniting and coming together. As I said, it's like the flowers of one garden. What makes a garden beautiful is from its diversity. So therefore, Baha'u'llah in the Baha'i writing says, when a thought of war comes, oppose it with a more stronger thought of peace. A more powerful thought of love can overcome a more powerful thought of hate. So therefore, we need to analyze this. But I think as well. But I want to take your question. You're talking to me about religion and how to put it into a secular way, and I'm going to break it down like this. I think that whole concept of religion needs to be refined. So what I mean by that is that at the moment what we're seeing is that all these different religions, and they are all claiming finality and exclusivity. So as the Baha'i teachings say, is that all religions in their essence are actually all one and the same. The only difference is the time and age in which they come. The fruits in which Christ and which all the other messengers of God have
Kalim, wait, hold on. The religions that you accept to be divinely revealed.
They're accepted to be divinely revealed.
And that's not all of them, is it?
Say it, in what way?
Do you accept Guru Nanak as a prophet of God?
All the major world religions as
Sikhism out the window then. Do you accept that Haile Gabriel Selassie was the return of Christ for the Rastafarians?
No.
Okay.
Because I believe that to be Baha'u'llah.
Fair enough. Well, there you go. So there are rival claims, and even within Islam and some what people would refer to as deviant sects, I don't like to use that language, there are other groups who have a different person that they think was the return of Christ.
So we have to analyze what actually it says in the scriptures as well. Of course, anybody can stand up and say, I am the return. But Christ gave very clear guidelines to understand. And this also gives us from our free will as well, is that Christ said, beware, there will be false prophets. Inwardly, they will be, I'm paraphrasing, bad paraphrasing. Inwardly, they will be, inwardly they will be as wolves, outwardly they will be as sheep. And he gave a complete and utter guidelines in terms of, he said, by the fruits of the tree you shall recognize them, because a bad tree cannot bear bad fruit and a good tree cannot bear good fruit. So therefore we have to understand.
Well, Kalim, any of these other followers could say the same thing and say, this is why I believe Haile Gabriel Selassie, the king of Ethiopia, was who he said he was. But another question, quite an important one, what about paganism? And that's from PK. Are you hugging paganism into this warm embrace of all the religions and humanity being one?
Being one and so on. I think, one of the main things that it says in Islam is that there have been messengers to all nations. Some messengers we know the name of, some messengers we've completely don't know. We've lost through time, and so on. And in regards to paganism, as Baha'is, we believe in the one true God. We believe in God, whether you call God Gaia or Mother Nature or Allah or the Father or Yahweh Al-Mazda. We just say there are different names to the one true God, and so on. So
what you're saying is the pagan beliefs on the British Isles, which a lot of people are sort of harking back to now in a way that might be similar to some of the Iranians embracing their Zoroastrian heritage and their pre-Islamic heritage. There are British people who want to embrace that Celtic, Brythonic. I mean, you're a proud Welshman. You must know what I'm talking about with some of the artwork and the patterns, and they want to embrace that pagan belief. If anyone knows what the pagan beliefs were back then, but you're acknowledging that there may have been divine messengers, according to your perspective, who came to the British Isles with a message that would have been believe in one God, right?
So, in the Baha'i teachings it said that we wouldn't know our left hand from our right hand were it not for the messengers of God, and so on. But the main aspect of what the Baha'i teaching says is that man's purpose is to carry forward an ever-advancing civilization, and to understand that we have to understand the key aspect of what religion is. And for me, religion is the concept of progressive revelation. You see, I think institutionalized racism, going back to this, institutionalized prejudice can all be eradicated if we understood this concept of progressive revelation, that religions are not in competition with each other. They all speak from the same voice, same voice, but they come at different times.
In response to that, Alfie is saying, all this diversity and look what it has led to: complete chaos, resentment and a total materialistic individual society. The world power has turned the Europeans from homogenous to hating themselves.
Yeah, well, for sure. But I think it's also an aspect of humanity rejecting the messengers of God and when they came. And I think if we understood this concept of religion, a religion being that there's not all these separate religions, they're all in competition with each other, that all religions are all one and the same, saying the same thing, true in its essence, one in its essence. The only thing is the time and the age in which they come. And if we embrace that progressive revelation, is that that religion needs to fit the time and the age in which they come. You see, when we talk about paganism or Hinduism, Zoroastrianism, yes, things like Zoroastrianism and Hinduism, 100%, I believe they are religions, but they came thousands of years ago. What was said at that time, I believe, was to be appropriate for that time and age. Forward it now to the 21st century, I believe we are in a world of globalism, right, and so on. Our time and our age in which we live in today is completely different to the past. Therefore, a message, I believe, needs to be presented that addresses the needs of globalism, and reverting back to things like paganism and the past old religions only reverts back to centuries and centuries of old religion that has come and gone, and and so on. Therefore, it is our purpose to carry this ever-advancing civilization.
Go on. What about people that want to remain pagan?
Of course, the aspect of religion is that there's no compulsion in religion.
So look,
they can believe what they want to believe. Not be fought against it.
If you get your way, and this happens, and you have your "I have a dream" moment, like Martin Luther King said, and not only are black people and white people sitting down together, you've got all, presumably, the different religions intertwined and respecting each other with harmony, right? And there will still be people that believe in Hinduism and paganism and Christianity and Islam, etc. How will you react if someone comes along and says, right, I've got a new, even better religion, and it's different from what Kalim was talking about, and I'm the new prophet? How will you treat that person if he start? And I use this analogy because, in a way, England is a Christian country, and Muslims have come to England, and they started building mosques, and they've started telling people, why don't you become a Muslim? And you know what? I love the fact that England has treated those Muslims well. Not great, not perfect, it's not perfect, but it hasn't done what the Islamic Republic of Iran has done to your people, the Baha'i faith, in Iran. And I'm just wondering what would be your idea of that scenario, if you see the parallel that I'm trying to paint.
Definitely. I think there are two things. One is that Baha'u'llah says be anxiously concerned of the age in which you live in. So first of all, we need to be concerned about the time that we live in today. The time that we live in today is completely different to the time of Jesus, of Muhammad, and of Krishna, and so on. Therefore, we need to be anxiously concerned, and of the time, the age which we live in, we are moving into globalism. Therefore, when I look at the teachings of Baha'u'llah, for example, see that he addresses the condition of the time, of this time today. You know, Baha'u'llah says the all-knowing physician, he calls these great educators physicians, doctors. The all-knowing physician hath its finger on the pulse of mankind. He perceiveth in his unerring wisdom the disease, and prescribeth the remedy. He says every age hath its own problem, and every individual his own particular aspiration. Therefore, the remedy in which the world needeth cannot be the same as the subsequent age may require. See, we are still living in this defective system that we're living in. We are still abiding by institutions and traditions of the past, which were meant for a different time.
You've avoided the question, Kalim. I have to readdress the question. How will you treat the apostate from your religion? And I compare this to how should English people, British people, which is a Christian country, treat the Muslims within their country that have a different belief, who think that, well, we accept Jesus, but we've had another one. And I want to go back to what we said about the Hutus and the Tutsis, and the case of the role reversal, and when the oppressed gain the upper hand. And Nelson Mandela was very, very particular about this. He didn't want a backlash. And there will always be some kind of repercussions from colonialism and oppression, and some people are very concerned about the state of the white people in South Africa. But what happens when you get your way and your people go from being oppressed to having the upper hand? Do they make the same mistake that the Islamic fundamentalists made in oppressing your people, just of a different belief? How do we include everybody's different belief? Because there's people in the chat who are saying, look, it hasn't worked, we all need to go our separate ways. I don't want that to be true, so I want you to give me, and I feel like you're going to give me a religious answer. And if that's all you've got, maybe that's fine, and maybe that's right, but it will mean a lot of people who want to go back to their paganism, who want to stay Muslim, who are proud to be Christian, are going to say, well, no, I'm not on board.
I can understand, and I totally understand that, and I think the biggest, I am going to give a religious answer.
That's fine, all right, go for it. He's got his script.
And I think that the main test for humanity has always been to recognize the most recent messenger of God and their teachings and the fruits that they have brought. In the Baha'i teachings, it's called the Eternal Covenant, that this covenant of God, that God will send messengers such as Muhammad, Buddha, Zoroaster, Jesus, and so on. And as Baha'is we believe to be the Bab and Baha'u'llah, he will send messengers in the future as well. So that answers your question about prophets as well.
But I happen to know for a fact that there's a specification that says after 1,000 years.
Yes.
So I'm talking in the scenario when someone after 999 years says, "Hey, it's me." How will you make sure you don't bang them up in jail, you don't execute them, you don't mistreat them like minorities have always been treated in many countries?
I've actually asked this question to a quite prominent Baha'i who was on a very prominent institution. And, you know, the main thing, as I said before, we need to analyze the fruits of the tree, which Christ spoke about. By the fruits of the tree you shall recognize them, because that's where our free will come in. We can choose whether to accept the most recent messenger of God, or we can choose to put our hands away and push back and say, no, I don't want to listen. I believe that the fruits of the tree is the revelation, the teachings of the messengers of God. But we also have that Baha'u'llah says that that all these great messengers come at different times, at different ages, saying the one same thing. This is eternal in the past and eternal in the future, as Baha'is we believe. Eternal means that we'll always be sent messengers, as long as there's human existence, of course, and so on, to guide humanity to the right path, and so on. But the biggest test, I think, for everybody of religion, and for the people at the time of when Christ came as the Messiah for the Jews, it was the biggest test for the Jews. You know, some recognized his station, some were blinded because they were consumed by materialism and so on. It's the same as well when Muhammad came, may peace be upon him, when he came and said, you know, I am a messenger of God. It was the biggest test for the people of that time to recognize his station, because they were so their eyes were blinded by their own interpretation, their own misguided way of a Messiah returning, of a messenger as well. So they were blinded, and as Baha'is who believe that this is the same with the coming of Baha'u'llah and the Bab as well, that you know, all religions are waiting, whether you're Christian, Muslim, Jewish, Buddhist, Hindu, they're all waiting for somebody to return in the future, to come back as their Messiah, you know. And what a world, you know, we are living in a world of complete turmoil, as we can see all around us, with this horrible systemic oppression and racism and prejudice that we are seeing. So therefore we need to understand that we need we need these teachings that addresses the conditions of this age. That's where, for me, that's why I gravitate towards the teachings of Baha'u'llah, because I say, okay, what Jesus said, what Moses said, what Muhammad said was meant for that time, and that age. People have asked me, say, oh, well, you know, what's the difference? There's no difference. You know, you look at the people at the time of Muhammad and Jesus and Moses, they didn't even understand that they were Welsh people. They didn't even understand that.
How backward can you get?
You know, it was very.
They hadn't even heard of Wales.
So yeah, so this is why I call for that need for understanding the concept of progressive revelation. If we understand the concept of progressive revelation, we can end, I believe, this oppression that we see around us.
Well, I just hope we can end it without, with people not having to have that certain belief, because it's a very particular belief, and I think the rest of it's great. It's going to be such a sticking point for some people that you may be preventing them from getting on board by making it what was the word you used so eloquently earlier? Finality and the other word.
Exclusivity.
Yeah, it's a little bit exclusive. But look, Kalim, I've got the last clip that I want to play, and it is a police officer addressing the Black Lives Matter crowd, and they're quite warmly embracing him So I'm going to roll that on the screen, and you might see it. Here we go. This is very sort of peace and love.
That's what we need. All we need is love.
We are hearing what you're saying.
And at Beatbox Tangent Instagram.
Yes, absolutely. And we'll put that in the description.
Gotta get a plug.
I've been a police officer for 34 years, and I've helped a lot of people. I've never hurt anybody. Okay, I want you to know that don't paint us with a brush like that. Okay?
You can't hear it, but it's on the screen.
They love you. We work hard to be safe and to keep you safe out here, and we appreciate you so much coming here and accepting
I have to do a Steve very soon.
Don't worry about it. Okay. Look, and I think that kind of chimes in with your message, Kalim. Thank you so much for talking to me. We've gone down a very particular route, and I'm happy to go down it. And I'm sure a lot of people will have heard some things for the first time tonight, and I appreciate you sharing that with us.
Definitely.
So,
Can I just finish off by
yeah.
I think, you know, as I said, we are, I think, as a stage in mankind's time, it's very turbulent. There's lots of turmoil in the world and lots of injustices. And I think if we can steer ourselves personally, whether we are of people of faith or non-faith, gravitate towards the concept of love, cohesion, and justice as well. And I think and our hearts can change. And our hearts can change if we gravitate towards these things. And I think only through education, love, unity, and tolerance and togetherness can we combat these oppressive negative forces that we see in our world today. So I'll just end with that.
Thank you very much, my friend. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Thank you, Jules. And big up to everybody in the chat as well. At Beatbox Tangent on Instagram.
Put that in the description.
And stay safe, everybody, especially if you are in America listening.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. There goes Tangent Beatbox. Kalim, friend of the show, much appreciated, and we'll do this all again soon. It's been Lessons for Life. We were here. We're gone. Laters.